What is up, PWA friends? Have you ever wondered what it actually takes to become an airline pilot? Well, in this video, that's exactly what I'm going to cover, so make sure you stay tuned. My name is Jared and I fly a Boeing 777 for a major airline here in the United States, and it took me quite a long time to get to where I'm at today, but I wanted to share a little bit with you here in this video. So what I'm going to be talking about today is going through the training process to actually become an airline pilot. I'm going to cover things like the cost, the timeline, what kind of ratings you can get, the types of airplanes you're going to fly, what kind of flight schools you should be looking at, how to get through that training, and then finally what kind of jobs you can actually get when you're done with your training. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is cost. That can vary pretty greatly depending on the type of airplanes you're going to fly, what kind of training you're going to do, and what ratings you're actually pursuing. However, if you are going from not having any ratings at all the way through your commercial pilot license, also known as CPL, the cost can range anywhere from $45,000 all the way up to $200,000, and in some cases a little bit more than that. Now, the higher end of that range is going to be if you are to go to a 2-year or even a 4-year college. You're going to see some of the higher costs, but you are coming out with all of the ratings you need, as well as potentially a 4-year bachelor's degree. Cost is one of the biggest factors that people consider when they're getting into pilot training. However, if you can't afford to pay for it out of pocket, there are plenty of options for loans for pilots who are looking to pursue their training. So next up is the timeline. How long is it going to take you to complete all of your ratings? There are several factors that go into how long it will take to get everything done, and the first one is going to be how much time you actually have to dedicate to your flight training. If you're having to take breaks, whether it's financial breaks or you have to go back to work, if you're taking those breaks in between each flight event or training event, it's going to drastically extend the footprint of your training. If you're able to get through each rating before you take an extended break, whether it's financial or go back to work, that is going to cut down on the footprint and really help out. And you can go all the way through your commercial pilot license, and that is really, again, going to cut down on how much time it's going to take. But ultimately it should take you anywhere from about 5 months all the way up to 4 years if you're in a 4-year degree program at a college. So the second factor that affects your timeline is going to be the type of school that you choose, whether it's a small FBO or flight training center, medium-sized one, or a college program. Those are all factors of how long it's going to take you. It could take anywhere from about 5 or 6 months all the way up to 4 years if you're doing the 4-year bachelor's degree. The third thing that affects timeline is how much money you can put towards your training. So if you can't do it out of pocket, that is fine. If you can at least get through each rating before you take a financial break and then move into the next rating, that is going to save you some considerable amount of time as well as money. If you're having to take financial breaks in between each training event or flight event, you're not going to retain the knowledge as you were if you were to continue through the whole rating. So therefore, I encourage you, if you can, get through each rating and then take a financial break and then go to the next rating. There's also loans that you can get. You just have to do a little bit of research, but there are loans that will help you get through from nothing all the way through your commercial pilot license. And the last thing that affects your timeline is how much time and effort are you going to put into studying and learning the skills that you need to know in order to pass your check ride. If you're not putting in that time, you're going to pay for it in the end, because you're not going to pass your check ride. You're going to have to go back and do some more training and then do the check ride all over again. So it really pays off to put that time and effort into your studies, and if you have to do a couple of flights over again just to solidify some of the knowledge that you need. So now let's talk about rating. The first rating you're actually going to get is your student pilot certificate, and that's something that your instructor is going to work with you on. You actually have to have that before you do your first solo, which means you're actually flying the airplane by yourself. The next rating you're going to get or license is your private pilot license, or PPL. There are some other ratings that you can get prior to that, such as sport pilot or recreational pilot, but I recommend go ahead and get your private pilot license, because with those other two there are some restrictions as far as altitudes that you can fly and the types of aircraft, how much horsepower that airplane has. Those are some restrictions. Your private pilot license doesn't have as many restrictions. The biggest one being is you're not allowed to accept compensation for flying somebody. So for example, if you were to fly a friend of yours down to another city, friend then bought you dinner, that could be considered a form of compensation under the eyes of the FAA. So you want to try to avoid doing things like that. However, you can take friends up and other passengers when you have your private pilot license. So the next thing is going to be your instrument rating. So what this allows you to do is fly the airplane solely based on the instruments that you're looking at and not have any visual reference to the outside world. So you're not looking outside, getting that visual reference, and you fly around. So this is where you're going to fly through clouds or above clouds or in weather, things like that, where you have no visual reference to the ground. Now, the next rating you're going to get is your commercial pilot license, or CPL. Your commercial pilot license is taking all of the knowledge that you've learned and really fine-tuning it and adding a few more spots of knowledge onto it and honing in your actual flying skills. When you get your commercial pilot license, you can actually begin getting compensated for flying people around. There are some limitations for it, so you have to make sure that you know the rules for getting compensated, but you are able to get compensated at this point. So what you do now is get your instructor pilot rating, which allows you now to teach other new pilots how to fly. So you're taking all of the knowledge that you have learned over the course of all of your training and you're transferring that knowledge to a new pilot. This does a couple of things. Number one, it solidifies the knowledge that you have, because when you teach this knowledge, it really becomes ingrained in your brain, and also the skill set that you're transferring to the new pilot, you're really honing in your skills of flying the airplane. And then the best thing of all, you're building flight time while you're teaching new people how to fly airplanes. The last one I'm going to talk about is the Airline Transport Pilot, or ATP. So you actually need this if you're going to go fly for a US carrier, Part 121, or a charter company, which is Part 135. You need an ATP license, but I don't recommend going out and just getting this license because a lot of airlines are actually paying you to get this license. They're paying for the license. So you show up with your commercial pilot license with the required amount of hours, you go through the interview process, you get hired. The airlines will actually give you your airline transport pilot rating. So now let's take a look at some of the aircraft categories. So the first one is going to be airplane. So airplanes is what you think of your regular fixed wing airplane. So the Cessnas, the jets that airlines are flying, those are fixed wing airplanes. The next one is going to be rotorcraft. That includes your helicopters and gyroplanes. We also have lighter than air, which are balloons and airships. There are a couple of other categories, but those ones that I mentioned are the most important and most common. And also keep in mind, just because you're certified in one category does not mean you can actually go and fly another category aircraft. You actually have to get certified in other categories. So if you get certified in a fixed wing airplane, you can't go out and fly a helicopter or a balloon or something like that. You would actually have to do training and get certified in those. So now let's look at some of the flight schools that are available to you. We have Part 61, Part 141 or 142, and college programs, either 2-year or 4-year programs. Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about how to actually get through training. So the biggest thing is if you can dedicate your time to getting through each rating or going from start all the way through your commercial pilot license without stopping, that is going to be the best way, but you're gonna have to put in that time. So if you have to take financial breaks or a break from work, I recommend saving up your pennies, getting one rating done and then going back to work, saving up your pennies again, getting the next rating, and so on. That's going to be to your benefit. But like I said, if you can go from not having anything and then just dedicate a good 5 to 7 months to get everything done, then that is going to serve you the best. The other thing I wanted to say about getting through training is you'd have to put in the effort of studying and applying the skills that you're learning. So whether you go up on practice flights on your own without your instructor, do some chair flying, you have to hone those skills in, because you don't want to get to a check ride and not have practiced as much as you should have, because those check rides can be pretty costly, and for you to have to go back and do some more training and then go back and do another check ride, it's only going to add to the financial burden that it takes to get all of your ratings done. So the last thing I want to talk about is what kind of job you're actually going to get when you finish all of your training. So the first one most people end up getting is the instructor pilot. So you become an instructor at a flight school, teaching new pilots how to fly airplanes, and all the while you're getting paid, you're building flight time, and you're honing in on your knowledge and perfecting your flight skills while you're teaching somebody how to do everything that you just learned how to do. Another option is to find an outfit that does aerial survey or aerial mapping. That is one thing that I actually did. We flew a Cessna 172 flying grid lines back and forth over some terrain, and then those images got submitted to a company and processed and sent out from there. Another option is to be a co-pilot for a small charter company. A lot of times a charter company needs a seat filler, so you can be a co-pilot on a small twin-engine airplane flying passengers around. Sometimes you get compensated, sometimes you do not, but the most important thing is you are building flight time, which is what you need in order to get to that next step. One more option is to find a small cargo company where you're transporting cargo and goods from one place to the next, and it could be in a single engine or a twin engine airplane, so it just depends on the actual company. After that, once you meet those ATP minimums, and I'm not going to get into all the requirements that you have to have for your ATP minimums, but essentially you need either 1,500 hours, 1,250 hours, 1,000 hours, or 750 hours, depending on the type of training that you did, is going to dictate how much total time you need. But once you have that, then you can get hired onto a 121 carrier, or also known as an airline. Normally the first step for pilots going into an airline, they're going to look at regional airlines, and let me tell you, there is a pilot shortage right now, so you will be looking at every regional airline out there, and I encourage you to do some research and really figure out which one is going to be a good fit for you, because like I said, there's a pilot shortage, and you're going to have the opportunity of being able to choose which regional airline you want to go to. Typically at a regional airline, you're going to fly something such as a 50-seater airplane all the way up to about 100 seats, and the types of airplanes are what we call Canada Air or CRJ. It's 200s, 700s, and 900s. There's also some different varieties of those, or an Embraer 145, 175, and different versions of those. So most people end up spending about 3 to 5 years, give or take, at a regional airline, and that is when they usually build up enough flight time to make the jump to either a low-cost carrier or a major airline. A low-cost carrier is something like Spirit or JetBlue. A major airline is going to be one like United or Delta or American, and that's when you're going to be flying the 737s, the 757s, or 777s, which is the airplane that I'm flying. I do flights all around the world, over to Tokyo, South America, over to India, so you get to see a lot when you get to one of these carriers. Alright guys, thank you so much for sticking it out with me on this video. I really hope you enjoyed it and that you learned what it takes to actually get your pilot license and become an airline pilot. This is a brand new channel, so please go ahead and hit that like button up there, and then after that hit that subscribe button, because it's going to help me build this YouTube channel so I can put out more videos like this one. And the other thing that I'd ask that you do is hit that alert bell, so then that way when I do put out more videos, that you get a notification on your account. Thanks again everybody. My name is Jared. This is Pilot with Altitude, and fly safe.